Hello everyone, this is Venky Srinivasan, your host, welcoming you to a brand new episode of our web series, The Road Less Taken, where we are in conversation with people who've made unconventional career choices and excelled at them. Our guest today is a very inspiring lady. She wears multiple hats. She's an entrepreneur after graduating from the prestigious IIM Ahmedabad. She runs a very successful jewellery firm in India, based out of Delhi. She is also an exemplary quizzer. She is one of the 4 winners of the prestigious Mastermind India show on BBC, and she also won the Champion of Champions in that show when these 4 winners met together. She's also an avid history buff, and she's written multiple books on history, including a wonderful one about women rulers of India who are lesser known, as well as an Indian history book for school children. Please meet as our guest in this episode of TRLT, the very versatile Archana Garodia Gupta. Hi Archana, welcome to The Road Less Taken. Thank you so much for being here.
Hi Venky, pleasure to be here.
Thank you. You wear so many hats and do so many interesting things. I have so much to talk to you about. But let me start by asking you a little bit about your childhood, your growing up days, and how some of those experiences shaped the various things that you do today.
Well, I was actually born in Calcutta and I was there for my first 5 years. So I don't know in that much time how much could have leached into me, the Calcutta culture. I did get the gift of Bengali. So though I'm from a Marwari background, I learned Bengali as almost a mother's tongue, because it was just there all around me. And we shifted to Delhi in 1971, so I'm a proper Delhi wala, and you can see my proud Delhi icon in spite of all the bad press and the tough times that we are seeing in Delhi.
Right.
I can say that how my influences were shaped. So my father, he came from a very conservative, traditional Marwari, Bada Bazaar background, was very, very intellectually inclined.
Okay.
And from a very young age, he was reading, and I think he started subscribing to Time magazine when he was in school, all on his own.
Okay.
People didn't read in English in the house.
Right.
So that kind of Chaudhry Charan Singh, he proudly talks about some book of Chaudhry Charan Singh which he read when he was 12 or 13 about farm policy or whatever. But that was something because he read extensively. The house was always filled with all sorts of books, which has just grown and grown. And
right.
As a good friend says, we will soon have to move out to another apartment to leave
leave
the house to the books.
Yeah.
Leave the house to the books, which are creeping everywhere. So that was a thing. And then not only that, you see, he was fond of classical music. He was fond of theatre, National School of Drama. Any kind of foreign troupe or whoever performances, So growing up, one would read, one would go to all these classical music performances, and there was no thought that this child is 8 years old and what are they going to do in this classical music performance? So as the eldest child, I remember I saw Tughlaq at the age of 8.
Wow, okay.
The National School of Drama, and it was actually underage, but I was a little larger for my age, so we just sort of made it. I was below age for that, and it is quite so that influence, and basically you were supposed to know something about everything,
right?
At least something about everything. So that was one cultural thing. And the second thing I'd like to say about a lot of people have families where the men are educated, and this is something specific to being a woman. But I have cousins who are maybe equally well read, or they have, but the women are supposed to be womanly in their families, so their concerns are supposed to be more about maybe social or spending time on how you look, or maybe learning womanly pursuits like embroidery and cooking and whatever. You see, today when I'm saying this, I'm talking about something 40 years ago.
Right, of course. Yeah.
And my mother, though she had been brought up learning all these things, she was an extremely liberal woman in the sense of, though she was, she didn't she got married at 17, so she wasn't educated to that. Like my father was a gold medalist presidency, and he was a MTech and all that. But she had this thing that people can, we were free to do what we liked. There were no role expectations. She never expected that, the only thing I think she made us do, which we used to crib a little about, is we learned classical dancing, we learned classical music.
Right.
And other classes, these two were permanent, and then you would join some classes in painting or this, or have to do some hobby classes on and off, but beyond that, really there was no thing that girls do this, they don't talk like this, they don't sit like this, they don't read like this is what you should do with your time. So that is a great enabler, because I've seen it, the expectations mold you.
Right.
And if you were just left to follow your inclinations, that was again a great gift. So you had an example and you had the time
Right.
to do
Right.
it.
And you were pretty much the first person from your family ever to come out of home and go into a hostel and study when you went to India's premier B school, IIM Ahmedabad, right?
Yeah. So in my now it's the norm. People, if you look at my relatives and all, the girls are all going abroad to do their graduation. It's difficult to get into good colleges in India anyway. Okay.
Yeah.
No, but now it's the norm. But in my time, the girls would go to some girls' college and typically get married after their third year. That was the norm. And so my parents were fine with it. After all, I gave the exams, so all that was going on, and it was hardly something hidden. But relatives, first cousins, uncles, aunts, grandfather, they said, okay, this is not what. One cousin who is actually from IIT came up to me and he said, do you realize if you go to IMA, you will be walking away from your world? And I said, sure. Anyway, I wasn't thinking anything very much. What world? We weren't so much into this planning and calculating and building yourself up for some role. As I said, there were no roles.
Right.
Yeah, it was. But I think because of that, I'd like to say, I have 4 younger sisters. 5 of us. So it was like an ice-breaking exercise.
Right.
Because my second sister then went to Bajaj, third one went to IMA again, fourth went to IIM Bangalore.
Wow.
The fifth got to go to US Cornell. So, further and further away.
That's a super achieving family, and you kind of opened the doors for that whole wave to happen. That's wonderful to hear. So after IIM Ahmedabad, was entrepreneurship always like the first choice because it kind of ran in the family and so on? Did you ever contemplate a corporate career?
Entrepreneurship, yeah, I was quite blinkered. In the sense of, I came from a business family. Nobody in our family had ever done a job, male or female.
Okay.
So business was just the way to be. So I don't know whether, if you considered it in the sense of, should I have actually gone and become a professor of history? Or you have so many options, but somehow that was the only thing. And I didn't even take a placement after IMA.
I was just
a lot of people work for a year or two, but I just, it was a very, they're not even discussed or thought of. And it's not that I wanted to do something and my family wanted to do something else, nothing like that. It was just, okay, yeah, I'll come back and join the business and try and grow it.
Right. And tell us about the journey of Touchstone itself a little bit. When did it start? What's it all about? And, how's it going?
Yeah, so I'll tell you first, I joined, my father had a spinning unit. It was called Himachal Fibers.
Okay.
And I joined that from college. And it was a very heady time because I joined in 1988. And I think people today cannot imagine what life was like at 1988, pre-liberalization.
Pre-liberalization, yeah.
Didn't have foreign brands. I remember a foreign visitor once telling me that we're looking at all the hoardings, and there's not one brand we recognize.
Right.
And now when you think back, it's not
Yeah.
the case.
Yeah.
I remember uh, I remember buying our first computer.
Mm.
It had a space of 40 megabytes, the hard drive.
Right.
And I remember an uncle coming and saying that, a new machine has come
Mm.
where if you put a paper on one end, you get the photocopy on the other end of the paper. That was a fax.
Facts.
We
Okay.
were very excited and we bought one because we were exporting at that time.
Right.
We bought one for 80,000 rupees
Wow.
in 1989. So I think at least a factor of 10.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
At least.
It would
Yeah.
be the equivalent of 8 to 10 lakh rupees for that. And we were so excited about it. It was just a black and white one. It was not even a color one.
Right. Right.
So those, I remember, I think 93,
Hmm.
they said, oh, CMC has started a messaging service where if you type into your computer at this end, you will get the message on the screen in the computer in the branch office. I said, really? Is that possible? And then you didn't used to get phone lines.
Right.
So, the phone connections, you would only get a phone connection to another city early in the morning.
Right.
So we went to a cousin's place in Okla at 8 o'clock in the morning, and he connected up his computer with his branch office, and they were messaging each other, okay, what were the sales today or whatever it is. Black screen with green letters.
Very matrix style. Yeah.
That's how we started working.
Mm. Mm.
And then liberalization happened. And then we started exporting, and it's also a story of Indian business.
Right.
Because we were selling locally, but we
Hmm.
could clearly see that there is opportunity abroad.
Right.
But we were not competitive at all with, say, Indonesia or whoever was doing yarn. We were making yarn.
Okay.
And I remember the first, when they devalued the rupee in November, I think it was end October or November in 91. And we suddenly realized that the prices are, we'd been corresponding, but not getting any traction because the prices they wanted weren't working. And immediately when the devaluation happened, we said, oh, now we can supply at thing. And we just got some phone calls, and then we took our jhola and we made some Sarawa catalog and just went to Europe.
Right.
To whoever we could talk to. Some of them were small, some of them were large, some offices we were laughed out of. They looked at our clothes and laughed at us. I think you need to buy an overcoat. I don't think this will do in our weather. We were like people who've come from the village to a city.
Yeah. Wow.
And then within a couple of years, we were exporting enough to convert into our catalog smartened up, our quality became better. We could buy the machines we needed to produce a better quality. So those were very heady times that we saw in the early 90s. And then after that, we set up this jewelry business after I got married.
Right.
So my husband is a gemologist, and also in my grandfather, my side of the family, also we have a jewelry silverware business. So we set up this unit, and we decided that we'll make imitation jewelry, which wasn't a category at all.
Yeah, I was just going to say
96, there was nobody.
Right.
But when I analyze, say, US numbers, so 93% of the jewelry, I remember in that year, which was sold was actually imitation jewelry.
Oh, I see. In the US.
In the US.
Okay.
And only 7% was precious. So we said, okay, this is something waiting to happen, So we took the risk. And I remember like the first samples we made, and relatives and all looking at it, showing it to some cousins, and they just looked at it saying, you're going to try and make a living out of selling these. But you're not looking at, you're looking at the great Indian market, right? Not just a few people who can.
Yeah.
Because most of the people who are buying this would have some gold, 1 or 2 gold sets.
Right.
And that's all. Most of them would never have owned a diamond in their life. And now they can get something exciting, nice.
Yeah.
Which, and we also, for our designing, we were looking to classical Indian jewelry. India has a huge jewelry tradition.
Mm.
So you could afford to have something pretty and nice
Mm.
for 1,000 rupees, 2,000 rupees, 3,000 rupees, which otherwise may have cost a few lakhs.
Yeah.
And that was the theme, that you create access. So
Right.
fusion pieces, Mughal pieces. I had good fun looking at old jewelry and seeing how to adapt it to modern wear. But
Very nice. Very nice. And through these 25 years of entrepreneurship now, you've also played a key role in kind of inspiring women entrepreneurs to come up. You've been, the president of the FICCI Ladies Organization. You continue to play important roles there. Tell us about that aspect of your journey. Where do you see women entrepreneurship in this country today, 25 years after you started up? Is it any better? Are there still challenges?
see, as you said, it's a field which I joined FICCI Ladies Organization in 1989. I finished my post graduation in 1988. So my mother was associated with it and I joined it. And so this has been a very significant part of my life, working to enhance women entrepreneurship, basically women empowerment, so to say. Um, are we better off? So, on an anecdotal basis, looking around you, looking at your relatives, your friends, yes, certainly. I think if you look at your mother's generation versus this generation, women are working, they are entrepreneurs to a greater extent, there is greater freedom of movement. If you look at the numbers, women asset ownership in India is roughly 5%. One of
Wow.
the lowest in the world, land ownership. Business ownership is about 10%,
Okay.
but as a percentage of business turnover, it's only 3% because women own smaller businesses.
Right. Micro businesses, yeah.
Women's participation in the labor force in India has been continuously falling.
Okay.
In the 70s, it used to be about 40%. It is now 20%. It's one of the lowest in the world, and unusually, it has been falling everywhere.
What explains this? What explains
So
this?
this is because this is something talked about. My latest book, actually, I've contributed a chapter in this book taken out by Penguin called Her Right to Equality, where I've suggested methods of enhancing and creating an enabling environment for women's entrepreneurship. This is a book on gender policy, and there are there are 10, 15 contributors,
Okay.
very well known, people who have written in various fields. As India has become richer, in India there's a very strong cultural thing that if you're women, especially in the middle classes, I'm not talking about the top and the bottom,
Yeah.
that if you can afford to, the women should stay at home. Considered. So as India has been getting richer, more and more women have been moving into from being poor to the lower middle class or the middle class. So in the poorer people, the labor force participation is high because they need to.
Yeah, they have to. Yeah.
But as India has been getting richer, that has been happening, and we're not getting it rich enough for the other end to where there's greater participation for that to happen. So that is so it is continuously falling. Way to increase it, you see, I think the main reason why people entrepreneurship or is about childcare and elder care in India.
Right.
If you look at your batchmates, I'm from Miami, right? I said, so half my batchmates, 50%, I did an analysis, 50% of them are not working currently.
Right.
And mostly they all dropped out when they had their first child, and some people got back, a lot of people never got back to work, because after your child you have 2 3 children and you've been out of the workforce for 15 years, it's very difficult. What is the pathway?
Yeah.
You can't join and all your colleagues are 15 years senior to you, and it's difficult.
Yeah.
So and even then my sister's batch, who's 8 years junior to me, it's exactly the same story, because I made her enumerate all her friends and what are they doing and how many of them were working, and it was still 50%. And that is because so this is something I actually found the countries with the highest gender parity index, which is basically the Nordic countries. Iceland is number 1.
Right.
And when I was Flow president, I invited him to speak to us and talk about the kind of policies which are there in Iceland, which enable this high participation,
Mm.
because I think it's almost 80+% of women.
Okay.
So he said that the major change came, the tipping point, so to say, was in the beginning of the 1970s when they extended school hours till 4:30.
I see.
So what happens is that those women then get a guilt-free time of 8 hours to take up a job or do whatever they want to. And he said there was a lot of resistance. People said family life will get destroyed, you know. Uh, but he said that is really, and if you actually look at it, the childcare facilities, which
Mm.
could be extended school hours or seamless childcare, which most of Europe or US provides, if those kind of facilities are made available, if private schools are allowed to have, what do children, okay, for the richer classes, what do children do when they come home? Do they stay at home and spend quality time with the mother? No, they go for
No.
their tennis class and they
Yeah.
go for their chess class and their maths class and their Marathi class or whatever it is. If the school itself could provide this on a paid basis,
Right.
it would be a revenue model for the school.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to look for a client list.
Mm.
It doesn't have to create infrastructure. No investment is required except getting those teachers.
Right.
You're providing options, guilt-free options
Mm.
to the parent. The parent is not worried, because if you send them to some childcare, you're worried what sort of children will they mingle with,
Right.
getting them to the childcare,
Yeah.
safety and all. But you're comfortable with the school, right?
Right.
You're already his children and the safety and all those angles. So this is something which I was, you know, I talked to a lot of schools. I did a program where we called the school principals and talked about this concept. After learning this, we were trying to. So I think a lot of it has to do with availability of childcare,
Right.
cultural things also, that whether women are supposed to take care of their children or is it okay to
Yeah.
put them in childcare. So I'm saying if you have longer school hours, that cultural element gets a
Kind
little
of.
sidelined.
Yeah.
You go around it a bit.
Yeah.
Then availability of finance both from informal and formal sources.
Right.
So informal sources is that culturally, suppose your son wants to put up a business, you may even mortgage your house to put
Right.
in capital. If your daughter wants to do a business, you're likely to say, अच्छा थोड़ा छोटा शुरू करो फिर देखते हैं क्या होता है.
Mm.
So the amount of money you can get from friends and family is typically less for women.
Mm.
In terms of getting it from the institutions, there are no very specific schemes for
Right.
women.
Right.
And since normally the way institutions work, you need collateral.
Yeah.
And it's not, the women don't own the property.
Yeah,
As I
again,
said,
goes
it's
back to-
5% ownership.
Yeah.
So obviously access to finance gets
Funds is needed.
restricted.
Mm.
So this is a second thing to look at. Of course, there are many things, I mean, many points. But I have a ray of hope in the future. It is e-commerce.
Mm. Mm.
So in normal factory businesses, about, as I said, 10% of businesses are owned by women.
Right.
On most of the e-commerce portals, at least 25 to 30% of the businesses are owned by women.
Right.
Because as a format, even if you have home responsibilities and you're not very mobile,
Yeah.
and your time is only available in short chunks instead of continuous time, it is suitable for a e-commerce.
Right.
It takes care of that, and the money will come in your account. You can
Yeah.
ship out from your home.
Yeah.
The mobility, which is again another issue,
Another issue.
is
Yeah.
not such a problem. So women are doing very well on e-commerce, and not only the formal platforms, but also selling on WhatsApp and Facebook. I think
Hmm.
all of you come across friends who are
Yeah.
selling some jewelry or
Correct.
clothes or whatever.
Yeah.
Food.
Food. Yeah. Correct.
WhatsApp, you keep getting WhatsApp from some
Yeah.
aunt and some cousin who's doing
Yeah.
this thing. I think they did last year. Women in India selling on WhatsApp and Facebook did about $9 billion worth of
Oh,
business.
wow. Okay.
And it is projected to be about $40 billion in a couple of years. So this is a ray of which may be all under the radar.
Right. Right.
So this is again, but the business is there. It is contributing to the economy, if not to
Yeah.
the tax.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Interesting. Interesting. I want to cut and ask you now about this other interest of yours, which has resulted in two wonderful books being written and coming out, which is history. But I want to ask you a slightly different question around it. How does one change the societal perception and acceptance of history as a subject itself? Because you typically hear, even at the college level, somebody wants to take BA history, it will be like, हाँ तुम्हें number नहीं मिले थे इसलिए तुम BA history ले रहे हो, that type of thing, right? What does history have to, how relevant is it today for all of us, and what prompted you to write these books, especially the one for kids?
Okay. So one, I love storytelling. I think I was the champion storyteller in my family for all the kids around.
Okay.
Two, history was always, I think, I did science in class 11th and 12th, but before that, in any year, if you ask me what's your favorite subject, it was always history.
History. Okay.
Yeah, but as I said, I was blinkered. So I didn't see that, okay, I can have a career in history, It was
Right.
just, okay, I'm from a business family, I'll do business. There wasn't even any thought around it.
Yeah.
But so history was always my favorite subject. And even now, after such intensive reading and, maybe to write the children's book, we may have read 500 books. I'm not, even after such intensive reading, even now when I go to a library or I'm looking on Amazon, it's history books I'm reading.
Right.
So
right.
I get surprised at myself, after this overload, you can still want more.
You still want more, yeah.
So it's true love.
Yeah.
It cannot be anything else.
It is.
So history as a subject, why is history important? I think today history is being weaponized. So it's because history is used to create identities. And if you and to direct you like in a particular direction.
Okay.
To control your behavior. So it's very important that objective truth, and you read and know it as widely as possible, so that you can make your own judgment calls.
Right.
And not be, and this is not just India.
Right.
I think all over the world, our historical narratives are used to shape our identities and our behavior. So it's very important that at least it should be truthful.
Right.
And why is history important? Because again, I said, those who don't know history, they were forced to repeat those same mistakes. So yeah, as in any knowledge space, as in any field of knowledge, there is a learning which is there. You need to know that, okay, this is how things happened and which led to this.
Right.
And this is a pattern. And you have to learn to recognize these patterns and see what is happening around you.
Right.
So that is important. But as I say, I drink Limca because I like it.
Right. Right. And your love for history nicely segues me into my next question about our common love for quizzing.
Yes.
Right. And your journey to becoming one of the 4 people in India to ever become Mastermind India, and you also became Mastermind of Masterminds in the big finale shootout that happened. Tell us about your quizzing journey. What is your first ever memory of attending a quiz, and how was the whole Mastermind experience?
So I was from modern school, and we didn't have a big quizzing culture. It was not like Columbus and all. My first memory of a quiz was actually a TV quiz in class 5.
Okay.
There used to be this program called Bachon Ke Liye on Doordarshan, where you would have some children and one lady who would talk down to them. So we used to have a teacher in school. I mean, she just took a very few classes, who was one of the presenters.
Okay.
They took all of us to Doordarshan Bhavan. Very excited, class 5 and all. And I actually got to answer 2 questions.
Okay.
You should ask a question, you'd raise your hand and all that. The first one, a lot of people knew. I'm forgetting what the question was. The second one, nobody knew. It was one of those things. And luckily, I'd read it in one Reader's Digest just a few days ago. Maybe she got it from there, who knows? But
yeah,
that was just a stroke of luck. But I was not really part of the quizzing team or anything in my school. Our school didn't even participate in Bonvita or anything. But I think it was in class 10 or 11. And I was not very good with the, which is the longest platform in India, and, those kind of facts and learning that up. And I was not good at it, but I used to read very extensively. And I was just, I think more or less for all my life, including till now, I do read about a book a day on an average. I mean, in a year, I would read 300 to 400 books.
Excellent.
So, yeah, some of them are just very light reading.
But still, 400 books a year is not a joke. Yeah.
Not a joke. And I was doing it by that age. So, I mean, it is bound to show up, right?
Yeah.
After a while.
Definitely.
So, I think one of the first sort of inter-school quizzes that we won, you remember that, right? The first quiz you win or whatever, was in class 11th in DPS. And they were, because it was being conducted by some young college, Sanjay Chog actually.
Okay.
He conducted it. And in 1981.
Wow. Okay.
And so we came second, and I still remember the high,
Fantastic.
Into school quiz. But yeah, then after that, college was a lot about quizzing.
Right.
I think something when people say, why are there so few women quizzers? And now there are a lot.
Yeah.
There are lots and lots of women quizzers, but in my time, there were very few. Very often,
now it's
only a woman on the stage or in a room.
Yeah.
At times, in the finalists or whatever, or even in the prelim.
Yeah.
I thought that it was basically that, a man's free time belongs to himself. He has his work, and thereafter he can choose to do whatever he wants to do with his time. But typically, a woman's free time belongs to her family.
Right.
You're supposed to do various things in that. And I think culturally also, women are supposed to do other things with their spare time. I think to be a good quizzer, to be anywhere near good, you need to spend at least 6-7 hours a day doing stuff, reading stuff, watching stuff, which can be of no use to you whatsoever.
Yeah.
Either in your business or in your thing, absolutely of no use to you. So I think you need a particular type of family and a particular type of person to allow that to happen.
Yeah, very true. Very true. Tell me, what were your topics in Mastermind?
Okay, a lot of history, of course, and myth.
Yeah.
So the first one was Jason and the Golden Fleece.
Oh, okay.
The second was Jinnah and the creation of Pakistan.
Of course. All right.
The third was the Krishnavatar series of KM Munshi.
Oh, okay.
And the fourth, which was the Champion of Champions one, was Jhansi Ki Rani.
Jhansi Ki Rani. Okay, yeah, of course. All right. Fantastic. One last question as we wrap this up, Archana. From all the different hats you wear, what are some key pieces of advice you would give young people who are looking to make career choices, who are potentially watching the show, whether it's from a woman entrepreneurship angle or from a history angle or a quizzing angle? Like, what are some of the things you'd like to leave them with?
I think, today's world has opened up a lot. And it's possible to earn a living in many different spheres. It's not narrow that earlier, okay, you need to be an engineer or a doctor to do, to live reasonably well. So I think it's important that you choose a field of work which you enjoy and which you are good at, and you figure out how to do better in that. But I think it's also important that you are not made for the good of your business or for the benefit of the company that you work for. So whatever your other, it's possible to enjoy more than one thing, right?
Right.
It's possible to enjoy 5 things. I think it's very important to enjoy things as you go along, to, you know, see art, to attend concerts, to have beauty in your life. Don't, you should always take out the time. I have traveled so much. I used to travel a lot for business, and this is again something I've learned from my father. So he had to go to Egypt to meet somebody to buy cotton, but he kept on his own. But he kept a day. He hired a guide and went up to Karnak, and you know, if any place we went, we would always keep half a day, one day to go and sightsee.
Right.
And you would say, okay, in a busy business schedule, is it even correct to do this? But I'm saying you're not an arrow made to go and hit some business thing. You're living your life, and who knows when you'll come back there, who knows when you'll see it. So it's important to live your life alongside your work. And there are a lot of people who say you have to be totally focused and spend all your time at one thing to do well in it. Entirely possible, but it's also entirely possible to do well in it with spending a little less time on it. And in any case, you'll have a happier life if you do all that you want to do. If all the time you're not suppressing your desires and emotions.
Very true. Very true. Wonderful. Thank you so very much for your time and for some of the fantastic points you made and sharing your experiences. Absolutely my pleasure to have you on our show. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Venky. Enjoyed it.
Ladies and gentlemen, hope you enjoyed that interaction with Archana as she talked about her life, her experiences, her inspirations, and what drives her to do all of these wonderful things around women's empowerment, history, quizzing, entrepreneurship that she does so successfully today. For more such episodes in full and highlights packages, please visit our YouTube channel, youtube.com/Nexus Consulting, as well as our social media assets on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and LinkedIn. If you'd like to recommend anybody to be on the show, please write into us at inquiries@consultnexus.in. We are in the middle of a very dangerous and very grave COVID-19 crisis. My request to all of you is to stay at home if you can afford to do that. And if you're going out, please make sure you mask or double mask yourself. Please wash your hands continuously. And if you are eligible, please go and get vaccinated at the earliest. Stay home, stay safe, and stay healthy till I meet you again on another episode of TRLT. This is Venky saying bye-bye.